Hello and welcome to the show. Today's guest is somebody that I actually have been building more of a relationship with as of late. We do some business with. His name's James Hawley. He is the founder and CEO of NextPath. They are a recruiting firm. He's very, very knowledgeable and credible in this space, so much that he built and sold a recruiting firm that did over 100 million a year in annual income. So he knows a lot about how to place talent, how to find good talent if you're a company. So I wanted to have someone to talk about those types of things. I'm a business owner, like a lot of people I know, and people that listen to this are business owners. So finding good talent is something that is inevitably becoming more and more of a challenge. So I thought he would be a really good person to bring on because he's been a great asset for our company in helping us find good team members. So which is hard to find because a lot of recruiters do dog shit work and they've been great. So really enjoyed the conversation. We talk about a lot of additional random shit, which is always so exciting too, because I had like all these points to talk about with him and I talked about a few of them, but we just start diving into so many I actually thought more exciting topics than what I plan to talk about. So, and PS, if you are watching on video, my face is breaking out like a 13-year-old, so that's good. Hopefully I get over that pretty quick and it heals when I wake up tomorrow. Like always, if you do like these episodes, share with your friends, rate 5 stars on iTunes, write a review. It helps me out. So enjoy the episode.
This is Openly Outspoken with Jeremy Adams, where differing opinions are not only accepted, they're encouraged.
All right, James, we're live. Welcome. And welcome most importantly because you shared that you try to keep, relatively private life. So I'm super grateful you can bring all your expertise. I mean, this is some very rare opportunities for people to get into your brain because of your lifestyle. So thank you.
You have the exclusive, Jeremy.
Yeah, there we go. And I actually think that I'm just connecting the two. You actually have something in common with a lot of the people that I would say like mentor me or that I looked up to. Like none of them are really big on social. A lot of them are pretty private with their lives, and like I'll do some social post, but I try not to live on social. I try to be as present as I can, at the same time having an internet marketing company and stuff like that. But I respect that about you because I think that from what I've seen and kind of where I'm transitioning to, it's a much happier lifestyle. Is that intentional for you to be like more private, or is...
Yeah, definitely, it definitely is. It's just one of those like you think back, it's almost like getting into the, lay down on the couch, right? Someone's got to, figure out why are you who you are, right? Some of it's like wiring, some of it's environment, and I think for me, it was just one of those. I was raised in, hey, don't be respectful, don't talk about politics, don't talk about religion, and I think that's just stuck with me all these years. So, I'm definitely more private when it comes to some of the opinions, but when it comes to business, I definitely laid out there. I think that's where I feel like I'm at my best. I'm in my wheelhouse.
Totally. Unfortunately, you have some pretty good business experience and success. I don't think we'll even need to dive into politics and religion like we were talking pre-show. So I think, some of my guests are so boring that's all we have to talk about, but not James. So we're good to go. Uh, no,
We'll let everyone be the judge.
Well, the good thing about having your own podcast is I just get to talk about whatever I want. So I feel like I'm very passionate about business. I'm very passionate about self growth. I'm very passionate about certain political topics. And there's a lot of things to talk about. But, I'm an entrepreneur, obviously, like yourself. A lot of my friends and a lot of listeners are entrepreneurs. So what you do is really important. And that's you've built successful businesses, but you help other businesses recruit talent. And I can tell you, firsthand, and people that are listening, we've done some business together, and you're maybe the only firm I've had some repeat success with recruiting talent. Appreciate that. And I don't know, why is it so hard? And I want to talk about like your bio and your background and how you got started here in a second, but why do you think it's so hard for so many recruitment firms to actually do a good job when that's what they specialize in? Because we had so many challenges with that before we connected with you guys.
Yeah, I mean, so I've been doing this a very long time, and I think that it's one of those where candidates choose who they work with, and at the end of the day, our industry is not had a good rap, right? There's a lot of posers, players that just aren't very good. And I think people get into it because they see others successful and they see money in it. And if you think about a barrier to entry, there's zero, right? Name a recruiter that has to take a certification, that has to go to school, right? And so a lot of people jump into it. And quite honestly, our industry is very heavy on like fresh college grads, right? Getting into it, start out, learn the business, and it's got a high turnover. So I think ultimately, it's that quality of the team that's so critical and important. And candidates, they're almost like, our pets. Like they can ultimately have good instinct, right? Animals know when somebody's being genuine. They could sense character, and I think candidates are the same way, right? They can see through the BS. They can see through the scripts and the lines and who's genuine. And so I think it's difficult, because there's not that many good players out there. And a lot of the training is all about like KPIs, numbers, make placements. And I don't fault the individual, the employee. I fault the business that just hasn't actually taught them properly how to recruit. And I pride myself on our brand, right? You and I have talked a lot about that. And I think that is that repeat business. It's so critical. And candidates come back to us and they tell us that, hey, you're different, right? Because we'll be the first one to tell a candidate, no, this isn't the right client or job for you. And most recruiters won't. They see a quick, fast buck and they just want to make a match. And I think it catches up with you, like every industry. It's not just recruiting and staffing. So that I think it's difficult because there's just a lot of bad players out there that haven't been taught well how to recruit.
Totally. No, that makes a lot of sense. So I want to, like I shared with you before we went live, some of my guests, we go into their bio and background. Some of them we don't, just because I think it can be kind of fluff. But for you specifically, I think it's really, really important because I want to talk about, strategies and ways you've been able to help companies find and attract really good talent, as well as like keep that talent. Would love to hear about your background and just how you got, started in the space and how you really just became an entrepreneur in general.
Yeah. And I have the utmost respect for you, just like having been through starting businesses. And, there's a reason why most fail, right? It's not easy. Right. And so I think from that standpoint, I love what you've done. And I probably have a similar story to you in that there was a spark, right? For me, I actually didn't even know that entrepreneur was a job, right? But I remember back in high school, I actually had a class that was JA, Junior Achievement. And it was the coolest thing ever because I'm thinking, okay, this doesn't appeal to me, right? I don't want to be a lawyer. I don't want to be a doctor. I don't like needles, right? I knew my weaknesses right away. But I'm like, I love business, but I also, loved how they grew and how they started, like that seed that, hey, these big businesses we've all heard, IBM and, Microsoft or whoever, hey, they all started with one person taking a leap, an initiative. And when I heard that in high school, it just kind of was a seed and it was dormant for a while. And I got into recruiting and staffing right out of college, fell into it like everyone else does in this industry. Um, and this is the only job I've ever had is recruiting and staffing. And I started with a company, made 18 grand my first year, salary. I just was happy to have a job. And I figured really quickly I'm pretty good at it. And then I got recruited by a bigger company, was there for about 5, 6 years, met my partner there, Dan Rodriguez, and we grew very quickly together. Found out that we made a dynamic team together. And then when he called me up and said, let's start something. And man, I had goosebumps. Like it immediately like lit me on fire. And I was like, let's go.
And
right?
what age was this?
So I was 29. So I was 23 when I started in staffing. And then about 6 years into working for someone else, I got the shot to go out on my own. And I cashed everything in because there was a buy-in. So I sold everything I could. I had a beautiful jet ski. I was like, man, this is my pride and joy. It was brand new. I'd had it for probably like 3, 4 months, had almost nothing on it. And I had to sell that, part with it. I cashed out of everything. I cash advanced every credit card I had. And I had to come up with like 80 grand. I mean, it was a lot for a 29-year-old. But I knew it was right. And so took the leap, and then he and I started that in 2001. And 14 years later, we built that business into 13 offices, almost 1,000 employees, over 100 million in annual revenue. And we sold that to an international firm, and then stayed on for a few years with them just to make sure that everything was good. And then just got the itch again and decided to, start a new chapter. And that's NextPath, which we started 2 years ago.
That's amazing. Yeah, I'm sure I could learn some from you. I've had a few exits, but not anywhere close to that total. We never grew to that big of revenue, that's for sure. I think what we're doing with the brand that you're helping us out with could possibly get to that point. That's what we're hopeful of. But yeah, that's really awesome. So what did you do? I imagine you got, some, nice compensation where you didn't really, have to work at that point. I mean, did you take some time off? Did you just relax? What did you do once you, I'm assuming really didn't have to work too much anymore?
Yeah, I mean, certainly it was nice taking chips off the table, right? As an entrepreneur, you kind of, you invest everything in the business, and the business had a lot of value. It was great. So it was nice. It was sleep at night money, right? Family was taken care of. I knew our kids could go to college. I knew that we wouldn't have to pinch pennies. So yeah, I thought about what to do, and I just, for me, sitting idle just wasn't an option. So quite honestly, it took a little bit of time, but it was weeks. I mean, it was like
Weeks.
nothing at all. Yeah. It just was, I don't know, it felt right. And I didn't want to waste any time. The one thing too was, if I think back on it, the reason why I felt like making that move sooner than later was important because I knew we had a very long stretch without a recession. And we had actually started our first business literally 9 months before, the 2001 recession. And I remember how painful that was. And I didn't want to start a business in the middle of a recession. So I felt like we need to plant roots quickly before the storm hits. And that's why I felt like I can get after this now because we'll grow quicker and we'll actually make sure that we've got a house that doesn't get blown away when the next bust happens. And who knew that COVID was coming, but that was basically our second year was COVID, but we already had our roots planted. So it was a good call in hindsight.
Are you seeing just, COVID makes me think of something, just current market trends? Like I hear, obviously the economy is rebounding, and naturally so, right after you just tell every business to shut down for a while. So, you're going to start rebounding from that. But Are you seeing any market trends in 2021 that are just like unique or that you've never seen before? Just like, what is your like high level 30,000 foot view on the uh, employee employer market right now?
Yeah, it really is like a dichotomy. It's like it's two different tales, right? You've got everything that was destroyed by COVID, which was the restaurants, hospitality, travel, and there's a lot of great people I know that own businesses in that space, and they've just been destroyed. It's really, really sad to see, and that's where the unemployment today is really where it's still high. We're not seeing that across the board, though. We work in tech, sales, marketing, obviously helping you guys with the digital marketing space. But we do finance and accounting. We do some very traditional stuff as well that crosses all industries. And the businesses that that are more like COVID friendly, like the Zooms, right, the virtual setups, they're having a moment. And we had really good timing and just somewhat got lucky that we were attached heavy into that tech sector. And so a lot of our clients, like we got one client that does, like notarizing online, right? I mean, nobody can physically get in front of each other for the last year. So man, did they have a moment, right? So we helped them build a startup with the right staff. So there's tons of stories like that. So really seeing like just two different tales. It just depends on what side of the coin that you're on right now. I think 2021 overall is actually going to be a pretty solid year for most businesses. Like we can't find talent right now. I mean, it's you and I've talked about this, right? Where there's plenty of opportunity to go even deeper into that digital marketing space, like what you guys are in. And quite honestly, like it's hard to find those people, and we don't want to over promise and under deliver. But then there's other sectors that there's plenty of people sitting out there. The one thing I know we talk a little bit of pre-show as far as politics. The one piece that I will say from a business standpoint, it doesn't get me excited is we're struggling right now, right, with the unemployment benefits that sit out there. That some of our roles that are more like tech support, help desk, $20 an hour, we can't convince people to come back to work, right? And so that unfortunately, government's very inefficient when it comes to they have to make very broad, decisions, but it certainly hasn't fully helped the people that it needed to. It actually has hurt from an employment standpoint, bringing people back to work. So I will say that's been a challenge with some of those roles.
Totally. And
Do you see that as well?
absolutely. I was in Tampa over the weekend, and I had an Airbnb in Tampa, and a group of us went to St. Pete Saturday night to go out, and I got an Uber back. And there's just such, from what I understand, such a shortage of Uber drivers for the same reason. It's like, why go back to work when you can collect, even if it's not the same amount, a relatively similar amount, and not do anything, right? Not have to drive around, put wear and tear on your car, add liability. If fortunately Florida, like, kids are back to school normal, but in some states, like, that's not even the case still, which is insane. So yeah, I took an Uber back from St. Pete to Tampa, the Airbnb. I think it was like 16 miles, $137. There's just such a shortage, and it took forever for an Uber to get to me. And it's just,
Right.
I think that there's a lot of, like, Uber is an interesting one too. I was talking with my guest last week about how companies like Uber really employ positions that don't require a lot of skills, right? And but although they don't require a lot of skills, those, or minimal skills, I would say, not no skills, but minimal skills, they're so vital to our economy. Like, getting people around, like, how important is that? Getting people around so I can go downtown and spend money at restaurants and spend money at shops or whatever it is. And we definitely need these these jobs back, because those are jobs that are vital. And I think we've all realized that during this time too, and maybe have greater appreciation for the grocery store clerk and stuff like that, the people that are
100%.
stocking the groceries, the truck drivers, and just even though truck drivers are a little bit higher skilled, but we value them more maybe than ever. But like even Uber drivers, I was like, took like 18 minutes for the Uber to get to me. And again, total first world problem, but if I rode, I don't even have a car anymore, so I've been a avid Uber customer the last few years, and it's really strange what we're dealing with, like even on the Uber side of things. So I'm very hopeful a lot of that gets back to normal. And I've been going out of my way to be extra friendly with the Ubers, tip good ones very generously,
Yes.
because I value them more. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
No, man, it's again good. I always kind of say whenever I complain about anything, like ordering an Uber or things like that, it's like hashtag good problems, right? Ultimately, we can afford to do it, which is great. But like our family got 3 kids and we run around like crazy. So for us, it's Uber Eats. Like we order food from Uber Eats all the time, embarrassingly a lot, right? And same thing, you go on the app and it's like, hey, there's no drivers, right? There's nothing available. But yeah, you got to tip well, take good care of the people that are like getting out there, they're hustling, they're working hard. I have like mad respect for them, and there's great flexibility in Uber driving. I know actually I've had some employees of mine in the past that, they actually very entrepreneur. I had one employee who literally he would come to work and to make a few extra bucks, he would actually he would Uber somebody that was going in the direction to our office, and he would literally make cash on the way in, and then you'd go home and you make cash on the way home. I was like, super cool and entrepreneurial, but he did it because it was flexibility, and that's what Uber provides, right? Is you can choose when and how you want to work, which is that gig economy, which is awesome.
No, and
You
I
know?
agree. And I mean, no disrespect from like a no skill standpoint. I mean, just like, yeah, it doesn't require a lot of skill, but yeah, there is different than maybe just being that cashier or, a typical, low income earner that's hovering around the minimum wage. I think Uber, like servers, which I was a server for many years until I started my first business. You make that position is what you make it. You can just eke by and earn an okay wage, or you can really go above and beyond and start building regular clientele, start earning good tips, getting like the Uber driver actually had 2 St. Pete, which this was like half the cost. It was still kind of expensive, I thought, but I'm like, all right, $60 isn't as, whatever. Uh,
Mm.
so that's what, I was like, that's normal, maybe a little on the premium side, but normal.
Right.
But she's just like, hey, I do like private drive. Like if you guys like want like any like separate service, or if you need like, pick up and drop off at the airport. I mean, there's opportunities to grow your business. Like you can use Uber as a way to generate leads to, if you pick up that guest that maybe needs weekly transportation or whatever. And she was just like, yeah, I've been building a book of business of people that need me regularly and that fly in and out of town and need somebody at the airport. And I mean, yeah, you can be really entrepreneurial with it. There was one Uber I rode in, and it's only been one time I've seen this, at least that I can remember. I thought it was extremely creative. They had like these promo flyers on the back seat with like an affiliate offer for like a special. So they were getting like an affiliate payout if somebody would sign up for, I can't remember what it was, but maybe they got $10 to sign up or $20 to sign up. But it was some promotional thing in the back. Then it was like, hey, you can also help me out if you sign up for this. And I'm just like, that's really creative. Like, I feel like
Yeah.
even if a small percentage, one of your passengers signs up for that in a day, that's no extra work. All they did was print out that flyer and put it in the back there. So I think I'm only mentioning all this because it's like just like waiting tables. Like you can make the most of your opportunity and get creative for extra revenue, or you can just just drive and go home, and it's just life. It's how you want to treat it is how you're gonna get stuff out of it. So
No, I 100% agree. And I think whatever you choose to do, right, just give it your all, right? I mean, that's where, there's a lot of kids that graduate that I'll interview and just talk about where they want to go. And, they're chasing stuff for the wrong reasons, right? I mean, find your passion. Like I always tell anybody, right, that I talk to that's young, that's still figuring it out. I've made mistakes, it's certainly not been the easiest journey at times. But, if you find what you love, then you'll do a better job. And if you do a better job, success will find you. Like it sounds cheesy, corny, but honestly, like it's true, right? It resonates. So again, if you're an Uber driver, man, just give it your all, right? Whatever it is that you choose. We actually were in a building a few years back, and it actually was super motivating. I stopped one day and told him the story. It was a security guard, right? And the guy took his job so serious. Like, I mean, he never missed a day. He was always like, given that job 1,000%. Sometimes in a bad way, right? He would chase down people that had been parked in the visitor parking too long, right? I mean, he was over the top at times. But I would always tell my team, like, look at that. I mean, he's probably making no money, right? I mean, everybody just treats him like, he's a rent-a-cop, right? Wannabe. And yet, man, he took that job so serious, and that was motivating to me. It was like, look, if he can give his all there, like, we have a great opportunity with what we do, right? And, we got to give it our all, right? We have to put that level of focus and energy into our jobs, and good things happen. So
totally. I mean, I met the initial investor in my company waiting on him. He was a regular of mine. You never know who you're going to meet. I'm sure Uber drivers meet tons of great people. Especially, I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, if you were a, what is it, Uber Black, right? The premium, like it would be interesting just to be an Uber Black driver and just like meet the people, like the quality of relationships you probably get. And sometimes 30-minute, 60-minute drives. I mean, that's really cool opportunity. So it is what you make. I've been seeing someone new as well, and she actually was a bartender, and the current company she's working with, she met bartending on them. Like, so it's just, if you have a good attitude and people see, like yourself, like you identified that this person, like you're an employer, you can tell when people take their job serious. Like that is very, very hard to find, and guys like you and me value that. And you can tell when people care. Like even the front desk, like, do you ever have this thought go through your head? We just hired this new front desk guy that unfortunately is already quitting, which sucks, in the building I live in downtown Orlando, like a pretty nice skyrise. And he was the only one I've ever seen to this point. He actually wore a suit to work. He was super friendly. If he recognized you, he would buzz you in at the front door before you even had to put your key fob. I mean, he just did tons of friendly things. And I'm like, dude, this guy is like, has his shit together. And I'm like,
love to see that.
Those guys are just so valuable. And I mean, they like, if like, not to get into like a big wage discussion unless you want to, but when you see people not earning the wages they want, like, I don't know too many people with friends of mine or people that I've worked with in my companies. If they bust ass and give it their all, they will earn more compensation and they will have a bigger opportunity within the company. If you are not earning the wages you want, it may make, rather than like spending too much time on caring about government policy, it may make sense to look in the mirror and say, like, what can I do to improve as an employee? How can I add more value to our company or to these customers? Because every manager, every business owner has tons of challenges finding talent. And if there is that rock star employee, they will work their way up in the company. Like it's sky's the limits. It truly is.
Yeah, and I mentioned it earlier, and I use that story as far as my first job. I mean, there's so many college kids that graduate and, they, they all want to earn big money, right? They set this bar and they'll take sometimes the job that pays the most, which I'm a big believer, like careful. Like if you chase that money, a lot of times there's a reason why that employer pays more than somebody else. Be very cautious, right? Be very careful. But I took that first job and I mean, $18,000 a year. I mean, at the time I was waiting tables, right, in college. And you want to talk about a shake to my core, I was waiting tables. I had earned my way up, and so I had the premium schedule, premium section and all that. It was actually downtown here. It used to be, there's Lily Marlene's, the Church Street Station. I worked there at college and I was earning $65,000 a year while I was in college waiting tables. And I took that job at 18 grand. That was painful, but I knew, hey, I'm going to place a bet on myself. And I think this is an industry that I could do good in. And then, second year, I made more than I did waiting tables. And the third year, I was six figures, and I've, had never made less, since I've been in the business. So ultimately, you can't look at that price tag and make some of those decisions. You've got to take an opportunity, even if financially it doesn't seem like it's where you want to be, which is exactly get off the sidelines, get back to work. Because the problem as well, and there are definitely people out there that absolutely cannot find a job, right, and that need unemployment. I'm definitely not saying that it's like broken and nobody should have that. But the problem is if you take that and you legitimately can work but choose not to, the problem is, man, this is going to come to an end, right? And when those benefits stop, you got a gap on your resume. And I can tell you as a recruiter, employers, it absolutely is a barrier to entry. They don't want to hire somebody that's been sitting on the sidelines for too long, without good reason, right? So if you're unemployed, find a way, go back to school, right? Or like take something, show that, hey, I'm working. And I'm telling you, employers will see that. I know as a recruiter, I can sell that. I can talk to a company and say, this is a hidden gem. This person is a fighter. This person is the type of character that you want to hire. And that's something that I can absolutely get behind, but longer you're out of work, it's statistically proven, right, that ultimately it's hard to re-engage and get back. There's long-term unemployment, when people don't get back to work. Those gaps add up. So
totally.
100%.
And not only a gap in a resume, but I'd have to imagine just a gap in a skill set, especially a lot of industries. I mean, think about how many things have changed. New apps and software could be implemented internally within that company. And this is unsaid, and it's not something employers are going to say, but I can tell you firsthand, I have friends of mine that like own restaurants or manage restaurants. If some of their, I remember when things first started reopening back in like May in Central Florida. Remember that? It was just like things to still open. It was like optional. You could continue to get unemployment, or you could come back to work. And I can tell you, like, again, this is unsaid, and there's probably no way you could prove this in a court of law, but I imagine it's nationwide. If you were one of the ones that sat around and didn't come back with just from the pure reason of like, hey, there are some people I think with legitimate concerns like, hey, I live with my grandparents, I'd rather just play it safe. But if you was just like blatantly clear, you just had no interest and wanted to continue to collect unemployment, which these small businesses pay for. It's government funded, but that's because the businesses pay for that.
Taxes, right?
Yeah, they're taxed on unemployment. I can 100% tell you they had not as ideal schedules, sections. They were out of favor in how they were treated within the company, because why would, if you're a business owner, like how can you not favor the people that were going to be like, hey, we're going to help you get back open because we understand like this. And again, I'm talking small business, which is a majority of America's employers are these small businesses that, a lot of them are kind of operating paycheck to paycheck that don't have a ton of cash reserves. Like, how can a small business owner not favor the people that were like, hey, we want to come back to work. we want to help you make this business succeed to make sure you don't have to shut your doors. Like, so businesses, not only is it a gap in resume, not only are you lacking skills, you're going to be out of favor, in my opinion, in just all the things I touched on: schedule, flexibility, promotions, all those things. And again,
Yep.
this is not to be political, but
I know.
it's there's so many like domino effects of like these lockdowns that I think we're going to be facing for many, many years to come. And this is just one that maybe is never talked about, that I'm just kind of thinking through as we're chatting.
No, and again, it's there's just like anything, right? Nothing's absolute, right? Not everyone collecting unemployment, is doing it by choice, right? They may not have other options. And COVID is certainly, man, it's been awful. I mean, it's been an awful thing, right? It's definitely changed everybody's life in some way, shape, or form. Some far worse, and it's nothing that I'm a big believer. Like, I've got friends that maybe haven't necessarily been on board with everything that the government's done on it. My take is also, like, let's get back to doing what we did, right? So, like, I got the vaccine, right? I'm not a vaccine type guy, but at the end of the day, I want things to get back to normal as quick as possible. And so from that standpoint, I do think the sooner that we get back to some normalcy, employment will come back. There won't be a need, right, for government to do as much as what they feel they need to do right now. And I think the jobs will come back. Your Uber drivers will come back. Like, everything will come back, and we'll be to a full employment type situation again, which is what I want to see for sure.
Yeah, and unemployment at its core is a good system. It's, hey, I had unemployment one time when I was like 19 or 20. I got fired a few times when I was younger.
Way.
But I think I'm unemployable at this point. I don't really have. Maybe I could be like a.
Is that why you've started your own companies, to employ yourself?
That actually was the thing that made me end up starting the own company, like, that motivated me, is because I didn't have a job. I was waiting tables at a high-end restaurant, and I was making, working a few nights a week, and they were kind of slow, but I had some regulars and it was premium. Like, I could make $1,000 a week, like a few nights a week. And I mean, it was great. It's hard. You get real comfortable with that, especially, this was 10 years ago now. So maybe with inflation, that's like $1,200 or $1,300 a week at this point.
Right.
But it was great money. I lived well below my means. I paid cash for my car. I mean, it was great. But yeah, I can't remember if it's 6 or 12 months, but you get, if you lose your job, if you're laid off or fired, you have 6 or 12 months to look for other employment. And it's something to just keep some cash coming in, because obviously it takes time. You're not going to get a job the next day. You want to find something that's the right fit. So unemployment at its core makes a lot of sense. And I'm actually a supporter of that, because it helped me when I was really young, and I think it helps a lot of people. What we have lately is like a very modified, like unrecognizable version of unemployment that, I think is unfortunately de-incentivizing a low skill workforce. And I think that's bad for our economy. So I'm curious, I'm really excited to talk to you about this topic actually. What is your feeling on the importance of college degrees in 2021?
I mean, so I would say that it's important depending on what you're going to do, right? I found in life that the words "it depends" could start everything that you answer, because there are situations where it doesn't make sense, and sometimes it does. So if I'm trying to climb the corporate ladder, a college degree is like a high school diploma, right? It's a minimum entry, and most of the time HR will pass you by because, oh, James doesn't have a college degree, which I do, but if I didn't, then they might pass me by even though I'm doing great work. Why? Because it's a policy the company has set. The bigger the company, the more likely that's like the price to entry. But I mean, man, like in a former life, our previous business, we actually had a pretty large construction recruitment group. And quite honestly, the trades, right? I mean, construction is a hot market. It's been hot for a long time. Looks like if this infrastructure bill passes, I mean, construction is going to be the place to be again. And quite honestly, I mean, we placed people that, were, superintendents, project managers. These are more white collar construction. They didn't have college degrees. And at the end of the day, they just knew the craft and the trade, and they were earning $120,000 a year. Really good money, right? So I think ultimately, to me personally, it doesn't matter. I've hired people without a college degree, and they've been some of the best workers. They understood hard work. College degree doesn't teach you that. There's a lot of things in school that you'll learn that, quite honestly, don't translate right to the real world. You know that. I know that.
No, James, I don't believe you.
I know.
You're saying that the liberal arts stuff doesn't help with our digital marketing company?
Shocker, right?
Yeah.
There's the news flash. There's the title of your podcast right there. Yeah. And what I would say, the reason I do tend to hire people that have gone through college is because it shows you can finish what you started, and also gives you a little bit of time to kind of, be immature, right? Be a college kid, and then you're ready to get on with your life. So ultimately for us, like most of our employees would be college degreed, but it's not because they need, honestly, I've got people with all sorts of different degrees out there that it really is irrelevant, right? Accounting degrees, business degrees, psychology degrees, it doesn't really matter. I'm looking for people that finish what they started and that have the attitude and aptitude. I mean, we have a luxury we hire people, and we get to teach them, right? The business. So it comes from all walks of life. So, I mean, honestly, one of our best billers in our previous company was a professional ballet dancer. She was freaking unbelievable, but she had learned commitment. She had learned hard work, and she was goal-minded, and that intensity translated really well to recruiting. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on it.
Are there any industries that you're seeing that, and you touched on construction, anything else that you're seeing where they're just, because I can tell you, I wouldn't say don't care. Maybe Christopher will correct me if he hears this, but I personally, because I didn't finish college, it's so hard for us to find good talent. The last thing I almost care about is the college degree if they can do what we need them to do.
100% agree with you.
So
I don't discount anybody that doesn't have one.
Are you seeing any industries where it's just becoming more and more common where they're less important?
Yeah, I think it's the trade stuff, apprenticeship type stuff, anything that, at the end of the day, you kind of have to learn it by doing it. Those certainly don't require it. Most of the stuff we deal with on the technology, sales, marketing, I would say most of the companies that we work with, they like to see that, for at least the candidates that we work with.
You know what I'm thinking, and you don't have to reply to this because I know it's a little on the political side, but in 2021, everything's about, the quality and all that stuff. So a big conversation, especially from Fortune 500 companies. I'm surprised we haven't heard, more. Maybe it's out there and I just haven't heard it. But Fortune 500 companies requiring college degrees is definitely more preferential if you're higher income and probably white, so because minorities are going to be just disproportionately lower income and less educated. So I'm surprised that's not a bigger conversation, and especially for more entry level positions like you're touching on that really are about the work and commitment. And that's what we've learned. Obviously there's certain industries without a doubt you need a college degree to get in, but I just feel like college, at least in our industry, is so irrelevant. Most college degrees are so irrelevant to the type of work that they need that we either need somebody that's just kind of already done this stuff and has very specific experience, or that is just a really, really fast learner and is willing to give it all. We have a combination of both of those people on our team. But yeah, I'm just now thinking it through. I'm surprised that that's not a more common discussion.
No, I don't disagree with you. I think ultimately there's a lot of companies that put barriers to entry for roles that, it actually limits their ability to get a better candidate pool.
Mm.
And, they think that it's helping, but, they're only, hurting their chances. Because again, people come in all walks of life, and, I've met plenty of people that are smart. I mean, way smarter than me with college degrees, but they don't have common sense, right? They can't do, let's say, a sales call, right? Because it doesn't compute, right? So I think ultimately college is right depending on the profession that you're going into. Like, I want my doctor to have a college degree. Sorry, but I
I
want
agree
that.
with that.
But I don't need a digital marketer, right? It's about performance. Like you and I talked about that. You've always been like, hey, good people, I always want to hire. And, your reasoning is extremely sound because a good digital marketer will make the company money, right? It's actually going to increase your profitability. And so it's a role that has outcome. And at the end of the day, you can measure it. It's very tangible if someone's successful doing what you do, right?
Yeah, I mean, and if you just look at like, and I'm kind of thinking of this. I feel like I've maybe had this thought process years ago, but I'm like it's coming up to surface in my mind again. So I'm gonna like try to explain it the best I can verbally. Like it's like two completely different avatars from like a 4-year degree or like a 2-year degree. Like it's like the single mother that had a child young that came from a rough background that finished her associate's degree at 27, or the kid that like hasn't really had too many major challenges, parents paid for college. It's just like who's probably, if I was a betting person, the one that's going to be more resilient, the one that like has something to lose, so they're not going to like act like an idiot. It's like in many cases, and again, I'm not saying like specific technical roles where like if like associate's degree just won't cut like for a heart surgeon position, but like it's like if I was a betting person, that single mother with the associate's degree may be the person that is going to be more resilient and is like willing to do whatever it takes to make their role work. um, I don't know if you have any experience with that, but I'm thinking, kind of just like thinking out loud. It's almost like a completely separate avatar of person, that community college graduate compared to the 4-year degree.
Yeah. It's the struggle, right? I think adversity forges somebody's, ability to keep going, right? Life's going to knock you down, but if you've got struggles in your life, 100%, man. I've seen it time and time again that those are the best people because they only see, that they have no choice but to succeed, right? And they're battle tested. Most of the time, I probably have a few exceptions, but one of my things that I look for with somebody that has gone through college and graduated, I look that they work through college. I love the fact when people carried a full-time job, or maybe worked, in order to pay for school. Like to me, that's a struggle, and it shows that they're self-sufficient, right? They find a way. They don't rely upon somebody else, and to me, that shows somebody that I think is going places. And I love teaching our business to those type folks because I feel like they're self-driven and they've got a great work ethic. And I don't have to teach them that. I just have to teach them how to do what we do.
Yeah, and makes complete sense. one more thing I actually wrote down here to bring up a little bit
Yeah.
ago, but I forgot. And then I want to talk about just really at a high level how to recruit talent because I personally, selfishly want to learn how to be better there.
Sure, I'll give you
Uh,
all my secrets, Jeremy, and then you won't have to use me.
Perfect. That no, that's okay. We ultimately, especially the talent of people you're providing, it's if you find a rock star for us, it's worth every penny with the type of, if, well, everybody we're basically having you hire right now gets us a really strong ROI. So if you find us that A candidate, we will gladly pay you the fee. But so you talked about waiting tables and you earned good money and something, and I remember this conversation. It was very uncomfortable, and I actually said something to her. It wasn't like it was an acquaintance. I wouldn't call her a friend, but I'm only using her as an example because I hear this all the time. Our modern society has done a really great job, unfortunately, of basically telling people that if you don't have a college degree, you're going to be a failure and you're stupid, or implying that, as well as certain industries and certain jobs, there's a lot of shame around it. And I'll give you an example. It's the girl I'm referring to, and who she is doesn't matter, but I remember this conversation. I'm pretty sure she was in massive amounts of debt. She had a college degree. She was in between jobs. And she was like shitting on a friend of hers that was a bartender. She's like, man, she's still bartending at 29. And it's just like, I do not agree with shame around certain positions. Like maybe, first of all, she's obviously earning more money than she was. But like you can like nice restaurants, nice bartender positions, you can earn six figures. Like, and there's a lot of college degree positions that will never earn six figures.
Correct.
So I don't agree with so much shame around certain things. And bartending and serving is the one that comes top of mind because I feel like people get shit on for like, oh, you're still bartending, you're not doing anything with your life. And it's like, whoa, like especially if you're good, you can earn really good income. You have schedule flexibility. You meet a lot of people. You learn a lot of people skills, which I think was helpful for me when I waited tables young. What are your thoughts on just like shame around certain positions and just society in general telling you or implying that you're dumb if you don't get a degree?
At the end of the day, they're projecting their own insecurities, is how I look at it. Anybody that outwardly shames somebody else or that's beneath them or, like they haven't achieved something that they have, to me, it's outlining their own insecurities and their own insecurities of like wanting to justify what they did. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that, by putting someone else down, they want to try and prop themselves up. So
That's why we bully as a core,
100%.
Bullying is all about as a reflection of that person. I feel like we hear that a lot, and I'm just like, I value top tier servers. Like, I don't know, do you ever go to Christner's in Winter Park?
Oh yeah, yeah. No,
That's one of my favorite restaurants. Yeah, yeah. Some of the servers there have been there since the 90s, and I love that because they know the menu by the back of their hand. They like the perfect experience. Like they're professionals.
dude, have you been to Burn Steakhouse in Tampa?
I have. I actually don't like it as much as Christner's when people make weird faces when I say that, but they have an unbelievable wine room and dessert experience. But
The
really good.
and But it goes down to the servers. I mean, to wait a table there, like it takes years, right? Of like getting like paying your dues, working your way up, and their career servers, and it's absolutely they make great money, but man, what a great experience! Like it's one of my wife and I's favorite places to go because just attention to detail, and their servers are right. Like same thing with Christmas, they know the stakes. They know like exactly the right experience and they adapt to the customer. So I'll tell you a quick story as far as like, most people don't know about me. There's a lot of things, right? I'm a private person, like I've already said. But one thing that I don't tell a whole lot of people was I was the most shy kid growing up, like absolutely high school. I avoided contact with people. 100% avoided contact. I had zero confidence. I could not communicate. because I was way too shy. Like I was afraid to make mistakes in conversation, and it was crippling to me. And again, self-reflection, I had to figure out, okay, James, do you want to be successful in life? Right? I had to talk to myself in high school, and it was like, what's holding you back? My ability to communicate with people. So I made, a decision at that point. I was of age to work, 16. And I said, the only way I'm going to get past this is if I face my fear head on. So I decided to be a server. Think about that, right? Waiting tables, walking up to a stranger every few minutes is absolutely the thing that a shy person fears the most, right? And it helped me tremendously. I started immediately figuring out, how do I adapt to personalities? How do I figure out that person is like a business guy? He doesn't want to talk to me in like life experience. He just wants me to serve him and get the hell out of the way. And I became that person. I had other people that were like, they're on vacation, older couple, and they just want to talk, 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 talk. And I'm like, I can be that guy for you. And it was instant reward for me to say, am I doing the right things? Well, if they tip me, and based on the percent of the tip, I got feedback when I did a great job or when I did a crappy job. And I learned more in that period of time. And it really gave me the confidence to then become a recruiter and to talk to strangers all the time. It was a great learning tool. And I tell everyone I can, hey, if you can wait tables when you're younger, man, do it. And I was a busboy, had to work my way up. So I didn't start waiting tables right away. Same thing to your point. Like there was a lot of like, oh, you clear tables and put dishes away. Like that was as low as they could come. But, I didn't care. And I earned my way up and it was a great living, and I learned a lot. So to me, I learned more doing that than I certainly did of my college experience.
Totally. And you brought up something I've maybe never really thought through as much as I should. And by the way, at Burns, I believe most servers have to start as like a barback or like a busboy or bus human, if we're allowed to
Person,
say that. Yeah.
yes.
Or maybe that's not even politically correct. Bus, living being, living, breathing organism. But there's like, there's that starting position because it's like, and I respect that. It's like, hey, you have to, and it makes you value those positions more. It's like, hey, I used to do that. A lot of my first job was at Bob Evans, as a corporate place. I worked there 3 years, 16 to 19. I like learned so much about like corporate run restaurant. It's one of the best experiences of my life. Looking back, I didn't think it at the time, but looking back at it, I'm like, man, they were structured. Part of manager training is they had to do 2 weeks in the dish room, 2 weeks as a server, 2 weeks as a host. And it's like, man, they made these managers, like how humbling is that too? You're coming to like boss people around and your first 2 weeks on the job, you're like cleaning dishes. Servers are just throwing shit in the back and they're like, come on.
Yep.
And they don't know what they're doing. So they're like delaying the dishes and stuff. It's like, it's so funny. But yeah, you learn as a server, there's those two tops that come in, they drink water, they don't order apps, they order 2 entrees and they're out in 45 minutes. And then there's those 4 tops that order 4 bottles of wine and want to chill and hang out for 3 hours. And you have to get a sense, and you like, maybe this develops our EQ, and you brought this up, and like I never really thought about that, but you have to get a sense like energetically of which one that table is. Some people want to be in and out, they like attentiveness, and some people like they need 20 minutes before they even order appetizers, and you just kind of sense who that person is, and you start getting an experience with that. By the way, anybody that orders steak medium well done, bad tipper. I don't know if you experienced that. Yeah, well done or medium well, 97% of the time bad tipper. I learned that working in more fine dining places. It's very, very accurate. So
That's interesting.
yeah.
I mean, we served a ton of porterhouse filet, you name it. I don't like. Maybe I just didn't spot that trend. Maybe I just thought they were all, like asses, and that's why I didn't realize that they'd order the same thing.
Yeah, and by bad tipper, I mean maybe like less than 20%. If you and again, if it's good service, you should always tip 20% plus, especially like if it's really good, I'll tip well beyond that. But when you only have a handful of tables a night, which is typically the case when you're a server at a more nice, like fancier place, the difference between a 10 or 20% tip when you only have 10 tables is pretty big deal.
Yeah,
So yeah,
especially now because my wife and I will walk into a restaurant and there's 50% less tables, right? And so these servers are really hurting right now, but they're out there and they're doing a great job. So yeah, we try to make up that they're going to turn less tables in a night too.
totally.
We've been there and we know how it feels. So both the financial tipping, but also just verbally, letting them know when they do a good job. As a boss, like, just telling someone, hey, you did good, or calling them out for good things, like, that's like an employee's dream. I feel like I always responded well when my bosses said good things.
Totally. And it's especially if it's all authentic. If it's not like you're doing great, like just like BS,
Generic.
like generic. If
Yeah.
it's like, hey, like I really appreciate the extra mile on this specific task. It really showed your creativity. That's a new thing for me. I'm doing my best to be more aware of those things. And I think when you start working more on the business instead of in the business, you see things like that, which is another good reason that business owners should get to that point as quick as possible. So, moral of that discussion, if you order your steak medium well or well done, also let the server know right after. You do know how to tip properly, you'll get better service. Okay, I'm just letting
Or
you
if,
know.
or if you're a server and somebody orders that, just manage your expectations that you're probably going to get like no tip, right?
It all balances out. The weird thing about waiting tables, and I did this for a lot of years, you'll have those tables tip you 30, you'll have those tables tip 10, you'll have the tables tip right at 20, which is probably most common. I feel like most people know how to tip nowadays, but it would all balance out. Like nights I would get bad tips, great tips, and at the end of the night I would look at my sales report and I would typically earn right around that like 19 to 21% in tips, like every night. So it all balances out.
So I got a question about tipping since we're on that subject. So you know how like whenever you order something at a counter, right, and you put it through, and they always flip the screen around, and then it automatically says, okay, like here's a tip percentage, and there's no like it's no service, right? But they're ultimately serving you. It's a quick, transaction thing. What do you do there?
So that's a good question. And then actually, we're never gonna get to these hiring tips at this point. But
Oh, I
no,
should.
no, 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 no. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I like this stuff because the reason I'm saying that isn't your fault. It's because of what I'm about to dive into. I listened to this podcast one time that talked about how America's economy is the most tip heavy than anywhere in the world, and how what tipping at the frequency that Americans do, the big downside of that is it creates confusion and uncertainty in consumer spending. And it actually it was a whole podcast on this. I can't remember what it was. I listened to it a couple years ago, but there was like economists talking about this, that it's like people will not do things and spend money because they maybe don't have cash for a tip, or they may not do anything, or it makes them feel uncomfortable because they're like, am I tipping enough? Am I tipping too little? Like, am I, like, whatever it is, like the awkwardness now associated with tipping and the pressure around tipping, because there's so many tipped positions in the US that it creates weirdness and friction in a consumer spending economy that should be effortless, right? Like that's why Amazon's so easy. You don't have to worry about that. You just spin, bam, it just shows up at my doorstep. But when there's that, am I tipping this person? Am I doing it right? Oh shit, I forgot cash. Like maybe I just won't even go in now because I don't want to not have cash. I don't want to valet my car now because I don't have cash to give the valet. Like,
Hey, that's fair.
so
Or like the guy in the bathroom, right? You're like, oh, I went to the bathroom. I have no cash. And the guy's like, handing you like soap. And you're like,
he sprayed me with my favorite cologne and I don't have any cash. I feel really bad. I'm like, dude, I love this cologne. I have in those cases though, because I was more of a club frequenter a few years ago. I would, like, if I had a 10 or 20, I would just drop that, and like I would maybe for like the whole night or for a few times there, I would not feel guilty about it, because I don't really carry like singles on me.
yeah.
But But yeah, I'll typically tip something, especially if I like go to that place regularly, which I spend most of my time downtown. So I'll tip, if it's like, I don't know, $3 or the 15 or 20% or whatever.
Yeah.
It's weird because I agree it's not service, and actual servers work way harder for their tip, but I fall into the peer pressure trap, the social trap, and I'll tip. What do you do there?
I think servers are by far the best tippers on the planet because we have lived in their world, right? And we know a lot of people don't. So yes, I always end up tipping if it's like an amount or whatever, like, I'll throw in if it's a $10, whatever sandwich, I'll throw $2 in, $3, whatever. And then if it's a percent, then yeah, it's always 20%. I just go ahead and do it. Even like a pickup order where I'm driving to the restaurant, picking it up, and the person basically just kind of took the order and they put it in a bag. I'm still 20%. I'll tip that. So yeah, I think my theory is that servers are the best tippers by far across the board. Just I think it's that understanding that we all have for their role.
Yeah, I remember when like maybe when I was around 20, so I'd been serving for a few years at that point. The cool thing about working for Bob Evans, by the way, is I started serving before I was 18 because they don't serve alcohol. So I got actually a lot of serving experience. I think I started serving actually when I was still 16, which was really cool. So by the time I was 19, I got a job at arguably the best restaurant in Ocala, I think it is. So it put me ahead of the game a little bit. But I remember a story. My dad like denies it now, but I still give him a hard time about this. Somehow tipping came up, and he's like, right next to my grandpa started a feed store. My dad's had one job his whole life, and that's worked for my grandpa at the feed store since he was 16. It's crazy. He's had one job. Right next to the little feed store is a Sonny's barbecue, and he goes there for lunch regularly, and he'd be like, oh, they really love me. I tip 20%. And I'm like, well, Dad, how much is your lunch? And he's like, $10. I leave him $2. I'm like, it's not a bad tip, but they're still making like 5 trips to you, Dad, for like $2. I was like, they'd probably, if you start tipping like 5, like they would consider that a good tip, but I don't really consider $2 after like 5 trips, filling up your drink, making you a go drink. I don't think it's a bad tip, but I don't like, he was like, yeah, it's like, I'm like a really good tipper. I was like, well, in that case, probably leave them like $5, especially they're making you a drink to go. You're a regular. They see you a lot. I think they'll really appreciate it if you do that. So he actually started doing that. I think he'll leave 4 or 5 now. But if it's a $10 meal, they're making a bunch of trips. I'll make sure to leave like $5 on that.
Oh, that's like again, not to go down the rabbit hole, but like haircuts. Like I leave 50% of whatever the tab was on the haircut. I don't know. It's just I feel like they had to put up with like clipping my hair and making small talk and stuff. Like I feel that's a very personal thing, even more so than even waiting tables. So you got to tip them well,
especially if they remember your haircut.
Yes.
And I'm like, my last guy, the guy I've been going to, last time I tip him really well too. It's like 35 and I'll just give him 50 or something. Like I feel like that's a pretty good tip. And I asked him, I was like, dude, how many times do I have to tip you well where you remember my haircut? Like, am I not tipping enough? Like, I feel like I'm tipping pretty strong. Like, I feel like 15 on a 35 on haircut's pretty good. And he's like, no, my bad. I'll remember moving forward.
It's solid.
But the point is, look at it. No one knows what to tip. There's no standard. And that creates...
It is. The only thing that I would say, though, Jeremy, is that, like, I've traveled abroad, right? And in Europe, it's all inclusive. They don't expect tipping, right? All that stuff. The best service in the world is in the US. I feel like we are a service society. Well, I say in the world. Okay, so I would say Europe is not good at all, right? I just don't feel like, you go to a restaurant. I don't feel like it's the same level that we get here because they already have their wage baked in, right? They don't have to earn it. I do think that we ultimately get better service because of the tipping here. But yeah, it's super confusing.
I don't disagree. I love, just to be clear, I tip heavily and I agree completely. I just think it does add confusion in the economic marketplace, which I don't believe on a macro level that's great for consumer spending. But I agree completely. Like service here from everywhere I traveled, Like, I haven't been to anywhere that delivers anywhere close to a Burns or Christner's experience in Cuba, where everybody
No,
makes the same wages no matter what you do. So that's the
you'll have to
worst.
send me that podcast though, because I would be interested in hearing it. So shoot that to me when you get a chance.
Absolutely. So I think it was Freakonomics, by the way. It has like a bunch of weird economic things. But all right, drum roll. How do I attract more and better talent to my business? How do I start bringing in the top players that I need to grow my business? Because any business owner, you need good talent. You're not going to do it yourself. I've learned that the hard way. I actually don't have any skills, so I'm forced to bring on people. So I have to do it out of necessity, but a lot of really smart, talented business owners fall into that trap of doing too many things themselves. And so what are the things you've learned over the years in how to recruit the top talent to grow your business?
Yeah, besides just calling a good recruiter, right? You're saying if
Besides
you can't
that,
afford a recruiter, what do you do?
and I have a question. All right. The last thing before you answer that, I'm really keeping people waiting here. Why don't more recruiters charge like a retainer? Because you're like doing all this work and there's no guarantee you're ever going to get cash, like some sort of like retainer or draw against, even if it was like $1,000 to show people are serious. Is that just like something that doesn't happen in your industry?
I would welcome that. We do retain business. It's not the core of our business. Contingent has been around since the day I started in this industry, and it's a great deal for the customer, quite honestly, because you're right, we work for free all the way up until you say yes, that's the guy or gal. It's just been a standard that's been accepted. I think there are too many recruiters out there that are contingent, that it's a flooded market. So at the end of the day, if I suddenly say, hey, I've never worked with you before, but give me upfront money, you're going to tell me to pack sand. You're going to tell me to
That could be a limiting belief. I don't know if that's the case, because especially if you get a warm referral. So what about this? What if and I'll say not if, when we do our venture together, that's internet marketing and e-commerce specific, that can be what we lead with is the retainer, because that way everybody we work with is serious, and they will pay it, I believe, and it doesn't have to be anything crazy. It can be, $1,000, $2,500, something that just out of good faith show you're serious, and that'll go towards your first fee that you pay. It's like not like it's just a prepayment to show you're serious. We're gonna spend a lot of time to find you right talent. How about in this venture that we do? That's what we'll do differently. Is we'll call it something better than a retainer, because people don't like retainers, but we'll come up with a better name so it's more marketable, and everybody we work with will, if they want to work with us, they have to invest something. We can donate it to charity. I'll be like, hey, we're just donating this to charity. We just don't want to
Whoa, wait a second.
Well, no, I'm just saying, it's not even about, I think, because people don't value what they don't pay for. So we have a mastermind group. Right. No one is in it unless they pay. I'm very, very strict on that. I've learned that from a mentor of mine. People do not give a shit unless they pay. So I would say, whether it's donated to charity or we keep it in this business, whatever it is, at least they're committing, so we know they're serious. So
no, I don't disagree. No, and there's some things that I've got clients that do retain business, and it's the most committed clients that we have. Contingent is accepted, and I think that so the thing about our business as well is we're not afraid of competition, and we match a lot of what our competition does, and we'll say, hey, we'll beat them, right? We'll match that price, or if it's contingent, at the end of the day, there's no cost to trying us. So that's been something that since the day I started in the industry, that's how I got a lot of clients was, hey, I'll work for free, and so that's how we've expanded our business as well. So yeah, I don't disagree with the sentiment that if people put money up front, they're more committed, 100%. So when we do our venture, right, then that'll be part of the price of admission.
Yeah, and you're also, I think, being creative and competitive when you're just getting started. But the last few times we talked, you're like, we're as busy as ever. We can't even keep up. I mean, supply and demand will tell you if there's too much demand and not enough supply, you increase the prices. So you may be able to just attract. Because if you, like, I can tell you for 100% fact, people, when we would do direct client work, which we don't anymore, but when we would do it, we were top 1% price point. Our minimum retainer, depending on what they wanted, would be 10 or 15 grand. Everybody else was like 5 grand minimum. We literally, there'd be people be like, know nothing about us. They would be like, oh man, we'd love to work with you guys. I feel like you're the best. They know nothing about us, but just because our price point that's high. And then there's that small percentage that are just like, we want to work with the best. I don't care what we have to pay. I've been hiring all these crappy ones for so long and I haven't got the results I wanted. I feel like you guys are going to be able to help. And that's what I want. I don't want the cheapest option anymore. So I feel like it would definitely push some people away, but I feel like some people be like us, like we would have paid if we could, like you could even, this is what we do actually. We're figuring out the business model live right now. This is what I'm about to say is genius. We retain them at whatever the price is, X amount a month or X amount up front. If within 6 months you don't get a hire placed, full refund. But at least they're committed. There's no risk guarantee, and it shows that they're serious. They're having to put that account. We'll put the cash in escrow, or we'll just leave it in our account. You will get it back if we don't place a hire for you. But people will automatically know that you're serious and you're going to help them by actually charging. I actually think it could be a game changer.
So really what I'm hearing from you though is that we need to go back on these roles that we're working with you guys, and we need a retainer is what I'm
No,
taking,
I was actually
right?
thinking the opposite. I had another recruiting firm say they would recruit it at half the price, and since you guys match prices like you just said, we'll just lower the fee.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Yeah.
we've already I wouldn't be the best example because we've already paid you fees for hires. I mean more of these new engagements. I'm not saying go retroactively like start charging people you've been dealing with,
Yeah,
but like
right.
when you you can set this May 1st policy. As of now, we start this engagement that's completely refundable if for whatever reason we're able to find that perfect. I would even say refundable with interest. Like I don't care. Like if we're super confident about helping this company, they would probably feel real comfortable about that. Like it's just it's we'll do it in our venture, and I promise it's gonna work because everybody that I talk to in our space has tons of challenges with recruiting. If they say, hey, I want to work with the best, all I care about is finding good people. If I have to pay this little fee that's going to be refundable if it doesn't work out, but we only want to work with serious people, I don't think it's 90% of the people are going to be fine with that. And those are the people I want to work with anyway that are serious. So
Yeah, no, I mean it's an interesting point as far as the whole industry. It's definitely been just one of those things that's existed, and I will say that, as busy as we are, we're also converting a lot. So I think part of it is we've been doing this a long time. Like we pretty much know who's serious and who's not. So I think that's probably part of it too, is that, maybe we just have that expertise that, we're able to just weed out the ones that aren't real. Having pretty much like sniffed all the bad ones before, so we know what it smells like, right? So, but anyhow, so you wanted the question. I know we're up against the clock. You've been trying to get to this question for me for a while.
Yeah, how as a business owner do you stand out, because life is about selling? How do you stand out as a business and attract the best talent?
I think it comes down to how you present yourself externally in the market. And I don't mean what you push out, right? I think it comes down to what candidates can see. Every time that we reach out to a candidate, the first thing they do, right, because technology tells us this, we could see that, they click on our LinkedIn profile, right? So we see that they're looking at us because we reached out to them. So everybody does their homework before they decide, right, what company they want to work at. And you'd be shocked how many companies just don't have a good persona out there. And what I mean is like Glassdoor reviews. There's some horrible ones out there, right? Google reviews. And those things you can't hide from. So to me, you got to look in the mirror and you have to say, if you were a candidate, would you want to work for you? Right? That's the big question. And if you run a Google search on your company, your business, see what a candidate sees. Most business owners would be shocked that it does not reflect well on their business, and there's no way that they would apply to work there themselves. So how could they ever expect a candidate with too many choices in the market? Why would they choose them? So to me, that's the most underrated area that companies just don't pay attention to, and that attraction tool. You guys in particular, you guys have a great brand. You guys have a great reputation. You guys own that space, right? I mean, you got testimonials from like top dogs, right, in the digital marketing space. Like, people know like that you guys are legit, and we don't have problems selling you guys, right? The only thing we do for you is we do a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to the numbers game of how many people you have to reach out to get to the right ones, and then ultimately getting them connected with you. That's what we do. We don't have to sell you guys. Like, people in that space know, and they look you guys up and they immediately say, yes, that's a company I can work for.
No, that's good info, and I'm just writing down here lower fee because we're really easy to work with. So
I paid you a compliment, Jeremy.
I know, just kidding.
Hey,
you started it with the backtrack retainer, so I wanted to say, like, you struck first blood. So no,
this was friendly until now. We hit the witching hour, apparently.
That was my main motivation, as I'm trying to really that was my main motivation this whole time. The cat's out of the bag. I was just trying to
put me on the spot. Thanks.
Yeah, I was trying to just renegotiate our deal. Yeah, I'm a businessman. So anything else? That's a really good one, and I think actually that is something that a lot of businesses, especially smaller, newer businesses, which need probably talent the most, don't do a good job of. Is there anything else that you see besides that has a big impact?
The second piece, and smaller companies may not have this impact, but if you're decent size to where, when people apply, it's not something that you see, right? Maybe it goes to HR, maybe it goes to operations, maybe it goes somewhere. You should apply to your own company and see what the experience is like. How long does it take for someone to get back with you, right? That's another fail that companies have, is good candidates apply. They're just not responsive. They go into a black hole. I'm not knocking on HR, but HR's got a lot of things on their plate. Recruiting isn't always what HR maybe does as well, because they're overloaded. And good candidates fall through the cracks. You do all this advertising and press work, but ultimately you're missing the people that are actually knocking on your door. So test your own system and see how it works. And if the experience is bad, then you've got a hole in your game.
Yeah, I like that. I wrote down the review one here because I even think that's something we could even do a slightly better job of, because on site we have some testimonials and stuff like you talked about, but I think, like, I just Googled us real quick as you shared it, like, we only have one Glassdoor review. So I think even like happy team members we have right now would possibly do it now. So I think there's little things like that we could even do a better job of. So that's good. So let's flip the script. If you're an employee, you're looking to get your dream. I even hate the word job. In all of our postings, we ban the word job. I'm very big about certain words. Certain words trigger me. I don't like job because it sounds temporary. So, but if you're looking for your dream career, and you don't sound passionate about a job, if you're looking for your dream passionate career, what are some tips that you can stand out from a resume or application standpoint?
Again, it depends. So if it's a sales job, you need to do a reach out. You need to actually, do something above and beyond versus just applying through the normal channels. You need to find a few leaders on the sales side, maybe even the CEO or something, and you need to connect on LinkedIn and send them a note and tell them why you want to work for their company. That stands out. And that applies to all skills. It's not just sales, but in particular, salespeople want to hire people that, are don't wait for things to happen. They go make them happen. And so that's something that if you want to work for that company and that's the job you want, you should go after it. So I think you got to go above and beyond networking. I'm the first one to say I get a lot of emails and calls, solicitors, all sorts of stuff. And if somebody can connect with someone that I know and they can actually reference that name, this just recently happened. You got tons of people that just ask for advice and stuff, and I try and get back with everyone. But, there was a young lady that reached out and she said, "Hey, Jeremy Adams said I should call you, that you're, the best recruiter he's ever met." Right. And I'm like, all right, that's my client. I'm going to pick up the phone and we're going to talk. Right. And I had a conversation with her. I dropped what I was doing because it was important, because I don't want to let a client down or a relationship down. So try and leverage any connections you have. People are shocked, and LinkedIn is an easy tool to figure it out. People are more connected than they really realize that they are. Even if like you're a developer or something and you want to work at a certain company, reach out to the developers and message them, and tell them, "Hey, how did you get that job there? I would love to hear about it. I applied, but I haven't heard anything back yet." I guarantee you'll get bubbled up and you'll get a conversation with somebody there. So, to get into a company, I think you got to be creative and you got to think a little outside the box. The normal channels don't always work.
I like that. It kind of comes full circle to what we were talking about with waiting tables and driving Uber. It's like you can just make the most out of it. Think outside the box. If you're an employer, like I've had that happen a few times, and I'm not even involved in the hiring process anymore, but I can tell you if somebody sent me a personal message and be like, "Hey, I chatted with Christopher and I saw you were one of the owners too. And I just wanted to say hopefully it's a good fit and wanted to say hi." Like if someone ever sent me a message like that, I'd probably call up Christopher the next time we chatted and be like, "Yo, this person reached out to me. Like that's a good sign. Like I like that about them." It almost never happens too. Like
That's the thing, is that most people think, "Oh, they're too busy. They get too many messages. They'll never even read this." You will, because it doesn't happen.
No, people definitely read it. Like it'll, unless it's, maybe P. Diddy may not read it if you're going to go work for his company, but most of your employers, especially guys like yourself who are more private, that don't really a lot of business owners I know aren't even on social a ton, don't have tons of Facebook friends, they're busy running their business, not posting a bunch of content on social media. So I have an analogy I want to make. I wrote down here to the recruiting industry. Before I do that, I want to end the conversation with this analogy. You may either love it or hate it, but that's okay because I think it's a perfect one. Any other thing on a hiring or application process you think is important to share?
There's obviously a ton of stuff that we could go through, but I think those are a couple of the top tips that I would give. So I'm comfortable with that. Okay. And if anyone has questions, they can certainly reach out to me.
They can certainly reach out. Yep, I agree. And pay that retainer.
100%.
Yeah. So again, I agree. I'm gonna come up with a better word than retainer. But so I made an analogy as we were talking of what I think the recruiting industry is similar to Mexican restaurants. Do you know where I'm going with this?
The free chips?
Yes. The reason that Mexican restaurants offer free chips and salsa is because the other guy did it. And it just became such a pressure and such an industry norm that they all do it. But I have been to a few Mexican restaurants that will charge for chips and salsa. And if it pushes away, and this is where I would say it's accurate, if they have a great experience, if the entrees are great, the service is great, I don't give a shit if they charge me for chips and salsa. And I think if the few bad people pushes away because you charge for the chips and salsa, probably not the ideal customer for my restaurant anyway. They're probably not spending money on alcohol and getting nice entrees and So
Really? Wow. I
if they
love.
wouldn't come to a restaurant for free chips and salsa, and maybe it's a little inconvenience, you're like, that's weird. I normally get free chips and salsa, but if the rest of the experience was phenomenal, would you not go back or tell your friends because the chips and salsa you had to pay $2 for?
Yeah, I mean, I know. We're getting top shelf margaritas, everything else. Our bill's not low, but I love it when I sit down at a Mexican restaurant and those chips come right to me. I'm a chip fan. My kids are like I love that. I think part of it is, if you can get, because the worst thing is sitting at a table in a restaurant, and you know this, sitting at a table and you're like waiting, right, for a server, maybe they're busy, whatever, and you walked in because you're pretty hungry. Like, I don't know. Like, we pick Mexican restaurants because they do that as a standard. I don't know. Like, I
Mm.
would not go somewhere because they charge for chips, but I do think, and this is just me talking, and if we're just using your analogy, I actually go, wait, I mean, come on. Like, you're just trying to nickel and dime me. I'm gonna spend the money. I'm not here just for free chips. That's just me personally, because we certainly, our bills are not low, I feel like, at Mexican restaurants, even though there's a load of chips there. So I would be pretty peeved if I
What
didn't.
about if the salsa, the chips were like house made? It was like three assortments of like grandma's recipe salsa, and it was like a better chips and salsa experience, but you had to pay for it.
That See, there's the difference. I absolutely pay for tableside guac. It's like my favorite thing in the world, right? But the chips are still there. I'm a happy camper, and I buy the tableside guac. No issues at all.
I mean, that's the play. They get free chips and salsa, and it's like $13 for guac. Like
Oh, 100%, man. Yeah, there's what is it? We went there in DC, up in DC. Is it like Rosie's? I think it is. Cantina. I don't know. They got a few of those. Man, they got some of the best tableside guac I've ever had. Like, we crave it. So I
tableside
like.
guac is good because you can be like, throw more jalapenos, throw more cilantro. You can't get that when you're just getting it at Chipotle.
No, 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 no. Nothing wrong with Chipotle. We're big fans, but yeah, it's a total different experience when you're at that like true Mexican cantina, great service and tableside guac. Big fan. I like your creativity for your analogy though. I like on the spot you came up with that. So I don't mean to dismiss it,
Yeah, no, no.
but
We don't have to agree on it. That's okay. I'm a big believer in the First Amendment, so we don't have to agree. But I would say though, if there was the spin, which is what our, and again, spin's even a bad word. I don't even like that word. Better angle, which is what our recruiting firm will have for internet marketing and ecom. It's just like, hey, we didn't want to be like every other Mexican restaurant and just give like generic free chips and salsa. All of our stuff is house made from locally sourced ingredients, and we just wanted the value. We want each of our customers to have the best chips and salsa experience ever. For that reason, we do charge for them because the quality is just so good. Like if that's the angle, I think that's actually more appealing. I would be like, I want to go have that. Unbelievable. So that's what I would say with our mark. If there's a reason for it, not just because we charge for the same old crap, I think that's not good. But if there's a reason you're charging for it, I think it's a plus actually. I think people go
have,
out of their way for it.
have you not had good chips that are like free?
Some are, but some aren't. It's like 50-50. Sometimes it's, oh, you know what I mean? Sometimes the chips like are kind of like real crunchy and kind of stale, and like the salsa's not great, and sometimes it's like, wow, this is great chips and salsa. But and it's inconsistent, right? It probably depends on the place, but if I knew I could go to a place with some, maybe we're onto something. The chips and salsa industry needs to step their game up. It's been kind of the same stuff for 100 years. Like let's modernize our chips and salsa experience. Rocco's does that actually, and it is for free. Rocco's will give you 3 different types of salsa with your chips, so I actually appreciate that. It's like 3 different flavors. Um,
And you have to pay for it?
no, oh no, yeah, you do have to pay for it, I believe.
Okay.
But I'm okay with it because it's like 3 different types, and it's like a green one, a spicy one, like a traditional one.
That's good. That's what capitalism is all about, right? Choices, right? I love the freedom of choice that we have here. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing.
We'll end it on salsa though. So and
You making me hungry, man. I got
enjoyed
nothing here.
enjoyed the conversation today, James. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no, it was a pleasure. Thanks for walking me through everything, and it was a good conversation. I didn't think we were going to go through the topics we went through, but I enjoyed it 100%.
That's what I aim for. Natural
Yeah.
combo. Thanks for, but yeah, thanks again, man.
Yep, you got it, man.
Thank you for listening to Openly Outspoken with Jeremy Adams. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast player so you get updated when new episodes are live. If you enjoyed this episode, the best way to support is to leave a 5-star review and share the podcast with people in your life that you feel would benefit from these types of discussions. Visit openlyoutspoken.com for additional details on the show. Find out how to connect with Jeremy on social media and learn more information about Jeremy's personal and business life. We'll see you next time.